Before we begin, I'd like to remind you that if you care about ending the apostasy in the church, and if you care about peace on earth, you should be praying all of the rosary every day. If you have a problem with that, it's simple. Just pray the joyful mysteries in the morning, the sorrowful mysteries in the afternoon, and the glorious mysteries in the evening. And now, this is the real Catholic news. CatholicCulture.org is reporting that, quote, Catholics in U.S. overwhelmingly support homosexual unions. Catholics form a relatively low percentage of participants in the Tea Party movement, have similar views to most Americans on abortion, and overwhelmingly support the legal recognition of homosexual unions, according to a survey published by the Public Religion Research Institute. The survey found that 14% of Tea Party participants are white, quote, Catholics, and another 4% are Latino, quote, Catholics, a lower percentage total than the 22% of Americans who are, quote, Catholics. The survey also found that 26% of white, quote, Catholics and 18% of Latino, quote, Catholics say that they are likely to vote for a candidate who supports abortion, while 38% of white, quote, Catholics and 26% of Latino, quote, Catholics are less likely to vote for a pro-abortion candidate. Overall, 30% of Americans are more likely and 35% are less likely to vote for a pro-abortion candidate. In addition, the survey found that, quote, Catholics overwhelmingly support legal recognition of homosexual unions. 41% of white, quote, Catholics and 46% of Latino, quote, Catholics support same-sex marriage, while an additional 26% of white Catholics and 22% of Latino, quote, Catholics support same-sex unions. Only 19% of white, quote, Catholics and 30% of Latino, quote, Catholics are faithful to Catholic teaching, which opposes the legal recognition of homosexual unions. Overall, 37% of Americans support same-sex marriage, 27% support civil unions, and 33% oppose the legal recognition of homosexual unions. In 2006, only 26% of Americans supported same-sex marriages. CourthouseNews.com reports, woman injured while resting in the spirit. New Haven, Connecticut. A woman says she suffered traumatic brain injuries and lost her sense of smell and taste after falling backwards while resting in the spirit in a, quote, Catholic charismatic revival healing service. She sued the Hartford Diocese in Superior Court. Dorothy Kubla says the accident happened when, quote, Father Robert Rusney was performing a healing service for members of the general public at the St. Augustine Church in North Branford. Kubla says she approached the altar, was prayed over, and rested in the spirit, causing her to fall backwards and hit the floor with the back of her head. She claims her injuries were caused by the priest's failure to follow protocols, rules, and procedures as outlined by defendants. Kubla says the priest should have had parishioners sit or kneel while he prayed over them, and that he failed to provide a soft surface for attendees, including the plaintiff, to fall to, if and when they fell or rested in the spirit. She adds that the priest also failed to warn her about the possibility of falling or resting in the spirit, and says he failed to choose Cathars who were physically and mentally fit to exercise their duty. Kubla says she fell over backwards and bonked her head, suffering injuries that included traumatic brain injury that resulted in a permanent and total loss of smell and partial loss of taste, plus concussion, injuries to her spine, pain in her jaw, and acute anxiety. She seeks monetary damages. She is represented by John Carroll. The Raw Story at rawstory.com. Exclusive. Gulf seafood poses long-term health risks, experts say. Despite repeated assurances from federal officials and President Obama, independent scientists and public health experts have serious concerns about the long-term safety of Gulf seafood consumption. In particular, experts tell Raw Story contamination from the massive oil spill and unprecedented use of dispersants employed to dissolve the spill have the potential to cause cancer and neurological disorders. In interviews with Raw Story last week, scientists and public health experts expressed concerns over possible long-term risks from eating contaminated Gulf seafood. Polycycloaromatic hydrocarbons, PAHs, are cancer-causing chemicals found in crude oil that can accumulate in the food chain. absorbed by fish and shellfish. During the ongoing testing of seafood in the Gulf of Mexico by federal and state authorities, PAHs are the primary concern. But crude oil also contains heavy metals such as lead, mercury, and cadmium that can accumulate in the food chain as well, though at a slower pace than PAHs, and are toxic to the brain and nervous system. Report: Cadillac sponsors Communist Party movie? Cadillac is doing its best to secure its spot in the ever-growing Chinese auto market, and according to sources called by Automobile, the luxury marquee may have even gone as far as to sponsor a documentary on the rise of the Communist Party in the People's Republic. Depending on which translation you believe, the name of the film is either The Birth of a Party or The Great Achievement of the Founding the Party. Both are pretty catchy, and the sponsorship is part of a drive to get the word out about its long wheelbase SLS. With the number of wealthy individuals in China growing by the day, it should come as no surprise to hear about the Crest doing whatever it can to promote its products in the country. Still, as Automobile points out, it's only a matter of time before some yokel on the internet connection begins drawing imaginary connections and calling GM out for its contribution to communism. I'll call it out. Telegraph.co.uk. Man who had died in car issued with a parking ticket. Nicholas Reppold, 21, who is believed to have died from an overdose, was in the driver's seat of his car in New York. A traffic warden saw his Jeep Cherokee, illegally parked during hours set aside for road cleaning. The attendant wrote up a ticket, placed it on the car, and continued on. Mr. Reppold was discovered an hour later by a friend. His cousin Patrick Hill told the New York Daily News, "It's really messed up. She could have at least knocked on the door to see if he was all right." An investigation was carried out, and police said the traffic warden had not done anything wrong because the vehicle had tinted windows and it was difficult to see in. The police said they have rescinded the parking ticket. Burying nuclear waste in the Palestinian territories. Palestinian farmers from Yatta village, south of Hebron and West Bank, have revealed that the Israeli military continues to bury nuclear waste in their farmlands at El Masfar, near the armistice line in the West Bank. The farmers said that the military forces IDF bring trucks loaded with the waste suspected to be radioactive and is burying it in their lands after they forced them to evacuate the area. The farmers said that they were able to hide themselves in some caves and watch the military operation. They stated that the Israeli soldiers who declared the area as a military zone were wearing white overalls over their military uniforms during the burial. The farmers said they live in Al Jassafar with their animals. The Home Depot promotes the homosexual agenda. For several years, the Home Depot has given its financial and corporate support to open displays of homosexual activity on main streets in America's towns. Rather than remain neutral in the culture war, as they should, the Home Depot has chosen to sponsor and participate in numerous gay pride parades and festivals. Most grievous is the Home Depot's deliberately exposing small children to displays of sexual conduct by homosexuals and crossdressers, which are a common occurrence at these events. Should the Home Depot be helping advance the homosexual agenda? And more importantly, will you choose to boycott Home Depot? This is from the CBC News, cbc.ca. Newfoundland police need no reason to stop drivers. Police in Newfoundland and Labrador will be able to pull over drivers without having to give a reason beginning Friday. Legislative changes made to the Highway Traffic Act to address safety on the province's highway come into effect October 1st. Government Services Minister Kevin O'Brien said it is a part of an effort to crack down on impaired driving. We brought this forward because the police were having a problem in regards to having a specific item to pull a driver over. Had to be visual, and if you didn't have a specific item to pull them over and they were impaired or under the influence of drugs or whatever, there was a perception that it wouldn't hold up in court, O'Brien said Thursday. When the change was proposed last spring, St. John's criminal lawyer Bob Simmons said it would give police too much power and could lead to abuse. Right now, for police to stop people, they have to have a justifiable, objective cause. Why is that? Because if they don't have a reasonable, rational reason for police to stop someone, then the powers can be misused. That's the law as it presently sits, he said in June. This has been Real News with me, the Sedevacantist. Good day.